Hello, wrestling fanatics. Welcome back to a new episode of 360 Fanatic Unleashed. Back with a new episode. Sorry, took last week off. Did not have an episode, but back with a new one this week. Also, just dropped yesterday a new episode of 360 Anything Goes. That is now available right here on Spreaker or wherever you visit or to listen to your podcast at. And this week's episode, I'm going to talk about a TNA pay-per-view that I remember quite fondly. And at the time this episode drops, the day you should be listening to it, 1 week from tonight will be this year's TNA Against All Odds on TNA Plus tonight. As I always say on the podcast, if you have not checked out TNA Plus yet, I definitely recommend it. Even if you don't, for some reason, if you don't like it, you can always just try it for a month, cancel, but I don't think you will. I think if you do try it, I believe you will end up liking it and keeping it. So I'm going to go all the way back to 2005 for the first ever TNA Against All Odds. February 13th, 2005 at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, also known as the TNA Impact Zone. And at the time, TNA Impact was airing, I believe, Friday afternoons still on Fox Sports Net. And I remember I watched that every week. And I know that is definitely not the ideal time slot for a pro wrestling show, but eventually that would lead to the debut of Impact on Spike TV later that year. The attendance, 775 for the Impact Zone. Actually, I don't think that's too bad. I have heard from people who have attended either pay-per-views or TV tapings at Universal Studios, and they said that it actually looks a lot bigger on TV, and then when you're there live, you really realize how small it actually is. So, once again, live in Orlando, Florida, at the Impact Zone, our commentators for the pay-per-view tonight, Mike Tenay and Don West, the TNA Hall of Famers, calling the action. Definitely always brings back some memories when I go back on TNA Plus. There's another plug there. And they're not sponsoring, I just really like the app. But it does bring back some good memories to go back watch classic TNA Impact episodes or the pay-per-views and hear Mike Tenay and Don West's commentary. And on the pre-show though, first, the countdown to Against All Odds, we had Phi Delta Slam defeating Lex Lovett and Buck Quartermain, and the Harris brothers defeated Mikey Batts and Jarrell Clark. And for the main part of the show, we had primetime Elix Skipper defeating Team Canada's Petey Williams. And of course, Coach Scott D'Amore was in the corner of Petey Williams. 7 minutes, 58 seconds for this match. I remember this one being a really good match. Now, Petey Williams, of course, working as an agent or a producer, whichever you want to call it, in WWE. I'd say probably one of the best X Division champions in TNA history. And primetime Elix Skipper, like they've always said, maybe one of the best, underrated maybe, X Division superstars. He was in the X Division, and he was also a part of Triple X with the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels, and Low Key. But I thought that he never really got as much respect, as much of a push that he really deserved. I pretty sure he is not in the business right now, but I actually would like to see him come back, even if it's just for a brief run. Maybe he could come back, have another run in TNA in the X Division. I think that would be pretty awesome, actually. And we have BG James teaming with Jeff Hammond, who at the time, the relationship with Fox Sports Net, he was, I want to say like a NASCAR analyst or something. They had him teaming with BG James, with Ron the Truth Killings, and Conan. That was at the 3 Live Crew days back in the day. And of course, I'm sure everybody knows now, R-Truth. At the time, Ron the Truth Killings. They defeated Michael Shane and Frankie Kazarian. 5 minutes, 33 seconds. I definitely would not say this was a 5-star wrestling classic, but for what it was, like I said, they had Jeff Hammond, the relationship with Fox Sports Net at the time, and there were episodes of Impact on FSN where he would sit in with Mike Tenay and Don West and do guest commentary for some matches. So, wasn't really that bad. And then we had Raven defeating the Natural Dustin Rhodes. 8 minutes, 20 seconds. Not a bad match. But I remember being a little confused at the time, actually, because Eric Watts was also involved in this feud. And then it was kind of confusing. If I'm thinking of the right feud anyway, Eric Watts coming in and talking about a secret that he has about Raven, but I don't think that secret was actually revealed. And then we have America's Most Wanted Wildcat Chris Harris and Cowboy James Storm defending the NWA World Tag Team Championships against Kid Cash and Lance Hoyt. AMW picks up the win here, 12 minutes, 25 seconds. Good tag team match. America's Most Wanted at this time was really hot. Definitely one of the top, if not the top, tag team in TNA. And I remember just a month before, at the Final Resolution pay-per-view, they had a classic tag team match against Team Canada, which you can also watch Final Resolution 2005 on TNA Plus. But definitely recommend going back and checking that one out. Next up, at Against All Odds 2005, we have the first ever Full Metal Mayhem match. The Monster Abyss taking on the charismatic enigma Jeff Hardy. And this was the first ever Full Metal Mayhem match. Going into this one, Hardy and Abyss have been feuding. And, of course, Jeff Hardy, the ladders, that's what he's famous for. And they came up with a version that would be TNA's version of a TLC match, which is Full Metal Mayhem. This was not for a championship, though, but this was for a shot at the NWA World Championship. They, of course, used the ladders, used the tables, used the chairs, the stairs, everything. And they even brawled outside the soundstage there at Universal Studios. And there, of course, was some tables set up. Hardy laid Abyss onto two of the tables and climbed up on this X structure that was there at Universal Studios and did a pretty insane swanton bomb off that giant X through Abyss, through the two tables, and eventually they did go back into the impact zone. And there's actually two envelopes hanging above the six-sided ring, and Hardy is able to reach the first one and pull it down, but it is the empty envelope. And at this time, Abyss knocks Hardy off the ladders, crashing through tables. I want to say it was 4, maybe, with 2 stacked on top of each other. And Abyss climbs the ladder, grabs the correct envelope to get the victory. At the time, I thought Abyss was a good character, and then later this year, they would pair him with Father James Mitchell to give him a mouthpiece, and those two, in my opinion, were great together. And Jeff Hardy, on the other hand, though, later this year, I believe, probably closer to the end of the year, would exit TNA, and then shortly after that, make a return to WWE. And next up, we have a 3-way elimination match where 3 ways to be eliminated: pinfall, submission, or over the top rope. And it is to determine the number 1 contender to face NWA World Champion Jeff Jarrett later on in the night. Diamond Dallas Page. I am so confused here. Sorry, my fault. I was thinking of Final Resolution. I don't know why. That's what happens when you get old. You kind of start to lose your mind. But Diamond Dallas Page and the alpha male Monty Brown are in action now. And they defeat Team Canada, Showtime Eric Young, and Bobby Roode. They also have Coach D'Amore and Johnny Devine in their corner. 9 minutes, 43 seconds. I apologize for that. And if you are a regular listener of 360 Wrestling Podcast, and you know I make a lot of mistakes, and most podcasters would go back, clean up those mistakes, and edit, but I have no idea how to edit any audio or anything, so that's why any mistakes I make, which that happens quite a bit, but they just stay in there. That's why. Next up, in my opinion, definitely a classic match in TNA history for the TNA X Division Championship. A 30-minute Iron Man match. The Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels, taking on the phenomenal AJ Styles. This feud between Styles and Daniels for the X Division Championship was intense. Remember, on all the episodes of Impact leading into this pay-per-view, I would say, this was the match I was looking forward to the most heading into the pay-per-view. It had a lot of hype around it, and believe me, it definitely did not disappoint. This match is just great. If for some reason you have not seen this match, definitely check it out. Whether it's on TNA Plus or if you just watch the match by itself, it is available on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's on TNA's YouTube channel. And I'm sure most people listening to this probably have seen this match by now. But if for some reason you haven't, that is your homework assignment on this episode of 360 Fanatic Unleashed. Go watch that match and you will thank me later. Just the action in this one, just the back and forth. The score 2-1. And the closing seconds of the match. Christopher Daniels has AJ Styles locked in. Or it's 1-1 at the time, I should say. Not 2-1 yet. Sorry for the spoilers, but Christopher Daniels has the Koji clutch locked in on AJ Styles. Styles is busted open. A bloody mess. You see there we go again. The blood just pouring out of his head, even spilling onto the leg of Christopher Daniels. And the time runs up. Going to be declared a time limit draw. Still TNA X Division champion AJ Styles. But then we see the TNA Director of Authority at the time, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, make his way to ringside. Daniels gets on the microphone, tells him not to protect AJ anymore, and he says he wants sudden death. Dusty gets on the mic and asks the crowd there at the Impact Zone if they want sudden death. They got it, and he gives it to them. Sudden death, first fall will become, or the first fall will be the winner of the match and TNA X Division champion. AJ Styles hits the Styles Clash to pin Christopher Daniels in this one to get the victory and retain the X Division championship. A total of 31 minutes, 42 seconds. Like I said, definitely match of the night here. And if you only watch one match from this whole pay-per-view, you should definitely make it that one. I'd say definitely probably my favorite Iron Man match. Not just in TNA history, but all of pro wrestling history in general. And in the main event of the evening, TNA Against All Odds 2005 for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. The King of the Mountain, Jeff Jarrett, defending against Kevin Nash. And I remember at the time kind of being a little skeptical, not really sure if they would put the NWA World title on Kevin Nash. But this match, in my opinion, over-delivered. It surprised me. A stipulation heading into the match was Jeff Jarrett could not use the guitar. He got Dusty Rhodes to say if he uses the guitar, he would lose the NWA World Championship automatically. But there is a point during the match where Jeff Jarrett goes to the floor, goes under the ring, and pulls out a guitar case, or what looks like a guitar case anyway, but it is actually a cello. And even Don West brings up how Jarrett got Dusty Rhodes to say if he uses the guitar, he would lose the NWA World Championship. But he does not have a guitar. He has a cello, and but the cello breaks a little before he starts to use it, and then he just hits it on the bad knee of Kevin Nash. Nash recovers and ends up power bombing, giving Jarrett the jackknife on the cello. But Jeff Jarrett does end up using a steel chair, I believe. I want to say he used the NWA World title as well. Hits Kevin Nash with a stroke. Gets the victory, 19 minutes, 45 seconds, to successfully defend the NWA World Championship. So that was TNA Against All Odds 2005. I thought this was a great show back then, and I still do, to be honest. Like I said, match of the night, definitely the 30-minute Iron Man match between AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels. A classic match, not just TNA history, but pro wrestling history. And I know when people think of Iron Man matches, first one they think of, I'm sure, is the 60-minute Iron Man match, WrestleMania 12, Bret the Hitman Hart, and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. But as far as 30-minute Iron Man matches go, I'd say this is one of, if not the best. And also, the same year, I know Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels also had a 30-minute Iron Man match on the Raw Homecoming special when Raw returned to the USA Network. And that is all for this episode of 360 Fanatic Unleashed, episode 9. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and I hope to be back next week with a brand new episode of Fanatic Unleashed. Hopefully won't skip another week. Remember, just yesterday there was a new episode of 360 Anything Goes to drop, talking about some of my different podcasts that I listen to. Pro wrestling podcasts and non-pro wrestling podcasts, actually. Remember, in the comment section, right here on Spreaker, YouTube, or wherever you listen to 360 Wrestling Podcasts at, you can leave suggestions and something you want me to talk about right here on 360 Fanatic Unleashed, whether it's a past show, a certain wrestler, or any kind of pro wrestling topic. I might just talk about it here on the podcast. Same goes for Anything Goes. If there's a certain non-wrestling show or non-wrestling topic you want to hear me talk about, drop it in the comment section. And I might just talk about it on a future episode of 360 Anything Goes. And tonight, 1 week from tonight, TNA Against All Odds on TNA Plus. Make sure you watch that. And that is all for this episode. Remember, keep listening to the new episodes of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, and every morning 360 Good Wrestling. Good. I don't even know how many mistakes I made on this episode, but every morning for Good Morning Wrestling fans. And until next time, this has been 360 Fanatic Unleashed.